Matt Smith here for Sports Talk at the Stadium, presented by the South Carolina Beef Council. And this is in the wake of South Carolina's humiliating defeat, frankly, against Ole Miss, 27-3 right here at Williams-Brice Stadium. Some games, the scoreboard doesn't tell you the whole story. Even the stat book won't tell you the whole story. This is one such game. It was actually much worse than the score indicates, really because of the way South Carolina performed. Shane Beamer, in his post-game comments, said that his team was undisciplined, and he takes responsibility for that. He set the tone, meaning Shane Beamer and the coaching staff calling a fake punt in the first quarter. It was sniffed out, ambushed by Ole Miss. It was just bad timing and poorly executed. And South Carolina paid for it because Ole Miss took control of the ball game, scored quickly thereafter, and never relinquished momentum throughout the ball game. South Carolina did play with a lack of poise, penalties, mental errors. They were jumping off sides. The defensive line continued to get a pretty good pass rush throughout the game against Jackson Dart, but they were growing more and more frustrated by just missing their opportunities. And Ole Miss's wide receivers were winning their one-on-one battles against the Gamecock defensive backs. And then in the third quarter, perhaps the most telling of plays, Dylan Stewart finally got to Jackson Dart after fighting through. He was probably held much of the ball game, and he vented his frustration. He gets Jackson Dart on the ground, 8-yard loss on 3rd and long. It's going to bring up 4th down and long. And while the game was out of reach, South Carolina could have made it competitive at that point. Instead, Dylan Stewart, the freshman, pulls out an air machine gun and feigns shooting Jackson Dart while he's laying on the ground. That's a penalty all over the globe, 100% of the time, probably in every sport, probably until the end of time. It was just beyond boneheaded from Dylan Stewart. And then seemingly unaware, insensitive to how poor a decision it was, later in the game in the fourth quarter, Dylan Stewart came up with a tackle for loss and then feigned shooting his teammates playfully, almost to say, yeah, I get it. I can't do this to an opponent, but I don't know that I've learned my lesson. And, of course, no penalty was thrown on that play, but it kind of shows where this team's head was at today, which was not in the game, not focused. Now, it wasn't all bad defensively. They played pretty well defensively, holding Ole Miss to 3 of 13, but South Carolina's offense gave them no help throughout the game, just 162 yards passing from Lenore Sellers. He made a couple of nice runs, but oftentimes South Carolina, just like the defense, the offense kept giving it back, kept making foolish penalties offensively. And so, look, it was not a well-coached game from South Carolina staff. Shane Beamer readily admitted that. Offensively, nothing to write home about. They didn't make a lot of plays down the field at the wide receiving corps. They couldn't get free from the defensive backs. And even though Lenore Sellers made some nice plays, made some nice throws, it's not enough. At the end of this game, 5 games in, now 3-2, South Carolina is averaging 176 yards passing per game. After all of these games are played later today and tonight, that is going to be in the 100s in FBS, near the bottom of FBS football. The passing game has to get better because Alabama is up next, and they suffered a monumental upset against Vanderbilt today. They have got egg on their face, and they will be ready, just as this Ole Miss team was revved up following their upset loss against Kentucky. That's the kind of atmosphere South Carolina is going to go into next week, Bryant-Denny Stadium, already one of the most difficult venues in all of college football, and you can just imagine the mood that Alabama is going to be in next week. South Carolina has to sharpen it up. All 3 phases. They have to get better. They had a missed field goal tonight as well from Alex Herrera. Everything has to get better for South Carolina, but most importantly, maturity, leadership. The penalties were so costly today for South Carolina. Shane Beamer talked about it. It's almost all he talked about in his post-game press conference, how undisciplined this team was, the lack of poise. Can they get it right? in 6 days? We will find out. We'll be covering it all on Sports Talk throughout the week. Chris Bergen and Phil Kornblut will have you covered on Sports Talk from 6 to 8 statewide, Monday through Friday. And we're open 24 hours a day at sportstalksc.com.